this is actually the first session of Know Your Operator, which is something that we're very excited to do. So for the SSV network, even if it's in the early stages, we need to make sure that the technology is built by trustworthy
That's
people
right.
with track record and people that know what they're talking about. So obviously, we'll have the verified operator option in the SSV interface. But in the meantime, it's even more important to get to know the people behind the project. So that's what we're trying to do today. You guys are the first ones to do it, which is very exciting. Hopefully, many more will join. But first entrance sort of advantage. So it's definitely going to be interesting today. No further ado, Yorick, Thorsten, take it away.
All right. Hi. So we're CryptoManufaktur, a very young blockchain company focused on infrastructure. I'm Yorick online, or Thorsten in real life. My my partner in crime here is Jake, and I'll let him talk in a minute about what he does. He's running Binary Frontier and some other companies and is engaged with me as well. So what's CryptoManufaktur doing? We currently run Chainlink nodes. So secure and available is something we're quite familiar with. I'm incredibly grateful that Chainlink gave us this chance. We went through the Chainlink Olympics and came up through the community and managed to get in as a node operator. I've also been running Jake's personal Ethereum staking for since Genesis, really. He's got 12 validators up and running. And right now we're engaged in SSV testnet on Prater, which is great. And with the Rocket Pool Oracle DAO on Prater testnet.
Great.
Jake, you want to say a little bit?
Yeah, no, just really glad to be here. My entire intro to crypto was building an ETH miner in early 2017. That was kind of my intro to the space. I did jump pretty fast from that into a pretty decent sized Bitcoin mining operation in Atlanta. I think I had the first kind of enterprise level Bitcoin mining operation. So always been on the infrastructure side of things. And Yorick and I are well into our careers in the regular tech world. Both of us support really large enterprise clients. So we are very used to handling big infrastructure, high pressure infrastructure situations. And so this was just a natural thing for us. And yeah, found Yorick on Rocket Pool. I got my stuff set up to start that process. And then as I was about to set up my 12 Ethereum validators, I thought, I'm going to get somebody that's probably even more knowledgeable than myself to do this. And Yorick was already making a name for himself. So it's kind of a natural fit. And we've been doing this ever since and just continuing on. So this is a great opportunity. Love it.
I'm very happy to have you guys here. Obviously, we also have Alon here. You'll be handling the difficult questions, but we can skip right to it. So today, obviously, you guys are planning on building many things. You mentioned that you guys came from the mining world, so you definitely know the advantages of Ethereum. So we'll go over that later. But sort of, can you run us through what you guys are planning or building or have already built? Would love to hear that.
For sure. Yes. So as I said, we're a Chainlink node operator. That's the thing that's keeping the lights on right now, right? This runs in a highly available environment that also makes sure that we only run one copy, as you might imagine. With that can be very important. So what we're doing is we're running containers in a cloud environment across multiple availability zones. And these containers are set so that only one copy runs at any one time. And they use shared storage on the back end so that even if there's a mistake, somebody types in 2, it will refuse to run because there's an exclusive lock on the shared storage.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're doing for Chainlink. For Chainlink, it's currently Ethereum mainnet, Polygon, Optimism, and the 2 that are coming on right now are Phantom and Hiko. Those are a little bit smaller, but still interesting. So that's what we're doing there. And then really, price feeds is what that is. If you're not familiar with Chainlink, this is all about price feeds. We're pulling data from API providers And then we provide a median to Chainlink, and they get a median from multiple operators, and they put that on chain.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I would say just from a big company perspective, we're really focused on key infrastructure, the key components of the community. We're not out to do everything. We're out to do the stuff that we feel is major in the community for infrastructure and really concentrate on those. So instead of going wide, what are the protocols? What are the things that we really want to support in the community? And that's important to us.
Yeah,
I think
100%. Go
I
ahead.
think it's interesting, you guys, starting with Chainlink and now SSV, because I think there's a lot of similarities between the two. I think that the economics of running a Chainlink node should be very similar to an SSV node in terms of
Yes.
how many operators you want to have, uh, operators choosing to do certain things and certain things not to do.
Yep.
We learned a lot from looking at Chainlink, both in terms of the product. By the way, one of the things I really want to do is try to mimic their Explorer. I think it's one of the best I've seen,
Hmm.
and also in terms of tokenomics and just how they treat their community and the way they bring on new operators. So it's great you guys have that background.
I
Yeah, and the
agree.
competition that they run, I think, is a good way for them to allow that open-ended, competition to find out who are the best operators out there and give everybody a chance to participate at the same time. So I think that's a really
Right.
great way to onboard potential new.
Yeah, if I can talk to that for just a second, right? I see similarities there as well with SSV, and I love the model. So both the
Sorry about that,
both
guys.
the that's okay. Uh, both the SSV and the Chainlink model is and isn't okay. We're just gonna wait for
Yeah,
that.
that's somebody trying to call me. Sorry about that.
All right,
So,
We'll
try again.
edit that out. Don't worry.
Same
Let's try
person
again.
tried to
So
call them.
yeah.
I see similarities in the model, right? And I like it. And what I mean by that is both the SSV and the Chainlink model are and are not permissionless when it comes to the node operators. Anyone, of course, can run a Chainlink node or an SSV node. But at the same time, with Chainlink, in order to become part of the big price feeds, you have to prove yourself because everybody relies on you. There's billions of dollars being secured by this, right? Same with SSV. Sure, anybody can run an SSV node, but in order to be verified, you need to be this tall, right? It's really important that people can rely on you because they put their ETH there. I also love that this between the node operators, it's not a zero-sum game. Just from a community perspective, I really like that this is cooperative, right? In order for me to deliver good Chainlink feeds, I have to have all the other operators also work really well. That means all the operators in the Chainlink ecosystem, they're working together. They're sharing tips. They're talking about how they're setting things up. They're always interested in getting others to the point where they're better.
Yeah.
And I see the same happening with SSV.
Yeah, I love that you've mentioned it. I think that well, first of all, I always look at issues as priorities because you cannot solve everything at once. I think in staking in general, there are two types of issues or challenges we're looking at in terms of the infrastructure. One is decentralization, which also influences security, and that kind of contains within it slashing and so on. That's, I think, by far the biggest operational risk anyone is carrying today, both in terms of if you're running on your own or running with somebody else.
Right.
That's by far the biggest one, and of course that also contains availability and so on, but that's a lesser problem. The biggest one is slashing by far, and in general decentralizing who holds your keys. And the second type of issues is really collusion, which is if and that's not specific to SSV. Let's say you trust your operator and that operator runs with your money or gets you slashed. That's a risk and that's a challenge, but that's a much lower risk, at least in today's world. And so when developing SSV, we really wanted to solve type 1 problems because those are the biggest ones facing today. Everyone is facing today, but on the long term, we would love to solve type 2 problems where that's exactly the permissionless kind of aspect of SSV. But that's, I think, much more complicated in terms of development, and will probably take years to get there.
Right.
But and that we can solve with, you know, just choosing the best operators. And I think that's a really good kind of a way of thinking about it. And yeah, I definitely agree that, you know, it also makes the service much better because you know, when professionals do that, people can rely on them.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
to wrap this up here, so we talked about we're Chainlink node in production. We're an SSV node right now on Prata testnet. What else are we planning to build? Probably, if we get there, an Oracle DAO node for Rocket Pool on mainnet. Right now we're on testnet. And we're looking at other delegated stake options, delegated proof of stake. But we haven't made a decision yet as to, is there room for another node operator, and where does it make sense? Where do we really bring value? You know, a lot of these things are established, and there's really no need for yet another thing.
This is actually a great point, and it's a great segue to the next part because I'm sure many of the new entrants, but even the guys that have been in the ETH space for a long time, faced with all these options, all these companies, all these, the chain links out there, it's pretty difficult to put your finger on the one that you really want to implement or the one that you want to put your eggs in the sort of, so to speak, metaphorical
100%.
basket. So with that being said, why ETH staking? What drew you in? And maybe you can give us, the viewers, a tip on where do you get started, you know?
Jake, you
Yeah,
talk.
I
I mean,
mean,
I'm just going to talk tech, but you talk. I mean, you got
yeah.
12
I mean,
validators
to
running.
me,
Why?
yeah, to me, this is my, I mean, the passion, it's, I always tell people it's, if I go back to, you know, my stock investing days and somebody said you could buy Facebook at IPO, but it's going to kick off a 19% return also, I would fall over and just die. I mean, the idea that this space is generating these interest rates on assets that are also escalating is just phenomenal. And, you know, we're not out chasing the moon. If people just understand compound interest over time, this is by far, I think, the best thing you could possibly do. I was going to hold my ETH forever. And so if you were going to hold it forever, you might as well generate yield off of it. And look, this is a technology that is booming, and we all believe it's going to take over in the future. There's going to be a lot of protocols that don't work, also a lot of blockchains that don't pan out. And so I want to be in what I feel is the obvious winner for the future. And for me, that's Ethereum, and it's always been there and it's going to be there. And yeah, you just cannot beat the idea of getting returns that it's kicking off right now.
It's actually interesting to see a miner gone validator, especially for someone in the space.
Well, you have to imagine, I was in through the 2017 crash also. And I mean, for those that weren't there, 2017, 2018, it was a really bad part of the industry. And those that lived through it, I think, you know, you really realize that you needed to bet on the big things, the big themes that were really going to pull through in times like that. And Ethereum came all the way back around. It's still here today. And yeah, staking, by the way, I mean, my miners cost an unbelievable amount of money. You know, the staking services, the hardware requirement, the barrier to entry is nowhere near what it was. So yeah, it's a much better concept, you know, than mining was for me.
Yeah, and if I can talk about that for just a second, right? So Ethereum is doing something that's never been done before. It's moving from proof of work to proof of stake on a major blockchain in production, right? If you've seen the video of the Saudis changing the wheels on their SUV as they're driving, that's exactly what we're doing here. It's insane and it's exciting, right? And I'm actually with Greta here. I think that yes, will 0.6 to 0.7% of the world's energy use is in proof of work total, right? That doesn't move the needle total as far as do we leave a comfortable, livable planet for my children and grandchildren. But at the same time, 0.6 to 0.7% just for cryptocurrencies, that's insane. That's like that's a medium-sized country, right? So it makes sense to me just from, you know, just outside of the technical world, it makes a lot of sense to me to say we need to get to proof of stake. And this will also, I think it will also help with uptake by artists who are looking at this and have already said, you know, we like it, but we have an image of being aware and caring towards our environment, and we can't put our stuff into proof of work. And it might help with regulation, where you already see lawmakers saying, "You're using how much electricity? You know, this needs to stop."
Yeah.
Well, for anybody that was, sorry, go ahead.
I think there's another very important point to make, which is proof of stake is just an enabler at the end of the day. Other than of course, the environmental argument, the reason why Ethereum goes to proof of stake is because it wants to get to sharding, and you cannot do sharding without finality, and proof of work is not final. And so I know it's most of people focused on that, but the end goal of that is really, and by the way, we see that even with stuff coming out with L2 and everything, finality really makes a lot of things possible, which otherwise are not possible. And that's really the benefit we'll see in Ethereum proof of stake, other than of course the financial instrument, which is staking, and if you go even further with tokenized staking, and then compounding interests, which are compounding with and so on and so forth. But it's really just the first step towards sharding, which is quite remarkable.
If anybody's watching this and they're trying to understand why they would do this, I mean, for those of us that were alive during the 90s and getting into computers for the first time, you saw the internet be born. I mean, this is like betting on the base layer of the internet. And then people need to understand that this isn't a layer beneath anything you've ever been able to get a part of. And it is amazing watching it happen, watching the upgrades roll out. And you're sitting there going, wow, they just upgraded the entire network at once, right? And that is unheard of in the tech world today. So this is really a bet on the base layer that should run most of the stuff in the future.
Yeah.
It's actually funny because just for me at least, sometimes I saw with the London hard fork that just happened. Here in the company, everyone was so excited about it. Everyone was getting ready for. We were celebrating it. The minute I opened the office door to go back to my house, it's like as if nothing happened. People outside are not aware of it, so it's always important.
They shouldn't be. They really shouldn't be.
I know, but sometimes it's the difference between what we see, what we get excited about, and what the outside world sees is exactly what you're talking about, Jake. It's exactly that.
Yeah.
All right, guys, just so we can frame it and we're moving on, let's talk a bit about SSV technology, SSV network, and what we are going to be doing with it. So just like the previous question, why SSV? What draw you into it?
Oh, this solves problems that I see right now. So I'm with Alain with the slashing concern, right? So let's do some numbers. We have over 200,000 validators right now, and I think 200-ish got slashed total. So it's not a terribly likely thing to happen. But if my back of the napkin math is right, that's 0.1%. That's still way too high, right? And so why do people get slashed? And what we've seen are two classes. Just operator mistakes. There was a single validator recently on Reddit. Somebody tried to get stats into a monitoring application, made a mistake, ran the validator client twice, didn't realize that, and got themselves slashed. Man, that hurts, right? And then we see it on the institutional side, where they're like, well, we don't just have one validator, we have hundreds, thousands. So it matters that they stay up. So we need to have some form of resilience and high availability, and they over-rotate on that. I'm not going to name names, you can look them up, right? But there's one in particular that managed to get over 100 validators slashed over, I think, 3 or 4 incidents, right? They did make their customers whole, but that hurts. And then we had the recent one. So that's one, right? Slashing. And the other one that Alain mentioned is rug pull. We had, again, an institutional recently where one of the devs walked away with the keys. again, we're looking at a not trivial amount of money here, right? And they just walked away with it. So that's millions. Maybe they'll get it back. Probably, legal recourse is still a thing. They know who he is, etc. But at the same time, that's scary. So being able to give people the ability to say, okay, so you get your availability, you get your resilience, because the key is split into parts, 4, 7, 10, right? And so many node operators can be down, 1, 2, or 3. But at the same time, you get the security from nobody can rug pull you and nobody can slash you, because every single node operator only has a fraction of the key. If I'm an institutional investor or an institutional staking setup, really, and I'm saying I'm going to split this into 10, right? So there's going to be 10 node operators running this stuff. 7 of them would have to conspire in order to slash that, and all they get out of it is the slashing. They don't even have the ETH, right? So why would they do that? 4 of them would need to conspire to cause downtime. It's such a much higher level of availability and security than you get with a single validator client, while at the same time not running that risk of over-rotating on the availability and then having an accidental slashing.
Yeah, and I think the industry in general is looking for, it's decentralization that goes on every level, every level where we can see single points of failure. I mean, we are talking about what will become the biggest network in the world, and solving those single points of failure, solving the human errors, solving all of those things are important, I think, for the space as a whole. And I love that has continued on, and we keep decentralizing, and ultimately making it safer for new people to come in and understand that it's not all on just their shoulders, and that's it.
I think there's 3 points I would add. One is, in terms of security, your validator key doesn't have to be online with SSV, which is a big thing. That is that even if you get hacked or one of the operators gets hacked, nothing really happens. So it's a significant part of that. The second part is really the kind of the more philosophical point of view, which is decentralization, as we've mentioned. And a lot of people talk about decentralization, but nobody really cares about it until they care about it, and they care about it when they get hacked. So, it's as old as the first block on Bitcoin, more than 10 or 11 years now. It happens all the time. Rug pulls, we call them rug pulls today, but it's plain hacking or plain stealing, and it was there 6 years ago. It will be there in 20 years as well. And so I think that decentralization really, really matters, but also it opens up a lot of doors. So for example, the whole DeFi sector really was born from a few people saying, look, we want decentralized exchanges and so on and so forth. But really what took off with DeFi was kind of an oversight of, once everything is decentralized, is also open to be interconnected. And so really what drove DeFi up wasn't really decentralization, but it was really, everything is now connected. You can move your funds from Uniswap to Aave in a click of a button, where you couldn't do that with, for example, the big institutional exchanges. And so I think the same thing will happen here. SSV is a step for decentralizing and opening up infrastructure. And I think the big thing that will happen is when people start building on top of it, they will find out that interconnectivity is what makes the network tick and scale happen. But decentralization is the key of that. It's a lot of times overlooked, but if you simply take decentralization away from the blockchain, you'll end up with the traditional financial system. That's as powerful as this is. And so I think that's a really, really important point for anything we're doing in blockchain.
So one of the questions I got off the last community call was, does SSV allow me to stake with less than 32 ETH, right? And I think that's a good question, and let's get into that. So we're talking now about layering solutions.
Yeah.
In and of itself, as it is right now on the proto testnet, no. You still need your 32, in this case, girly ETH to do that, right? However, this really allows a layering and decentralization on the pools. So when you look at two of the larger pools out there that are talking to people about decentralization, they are Rocket Pool and Lido, right? Lido is currently centralized, and they're talking about the difficulty of decentralizing the way that Rocket Pool does because of the need to have a bond. Rocket Pool allows anybody to run a node, but in order to secure that, those people have to put up, I think, 17.6 ETH minimum as a bond, right? That's great for security, but Lido is right when they say, well, that is a scaling problem, right? Yeah. You need to be able to trust your operators to the point where you can be bondless, because otherwise there will always be more people wanting to stake ETH than there will be node operators having ETH to put up a bond. Yeah. So SSV could solve this beautifully, right? You could say you need, I don't know what it looks like, I'm just spitballing, you need this much of a bond, you need to be this tall, so we trust you. But at that point, because you cannot hack, because if you get hacked, you only have a fraction of the key, because of all these security bits that Alain talked about, we can put our stakers ETH with you safely, and you don't have to have half of that as, or the equivalent, actually, the same amount plus a little bit as a bond to run,
Yeah, and you can also have kind of a hybrid configuration where some of the operators are bonded, or some of the operators are verified, or a mix of them, and some of them are not. And you can guarantee that even if the non-bonded, non-verified operators collude, they can't really do anything. But they're still there for robustness and fault tolerance. And so imagine that you have, let's say, 10 operators per node. You can have 3 of them or 4 of them verified, so the big institutional staking services. You can have 3 of them or 4 of them bonded with much less than the kind of 17 ETH, and you can have 3 or 4 of them non-trusted, non-verified, non-bonded. And you can still select them, by the way, by reputation and performance. That doesn't really it doesn't prevent that. And so you can do that to reduce cost. You can do that to decentralize. You can do that for various amounts of reasons. But you can still be safe, and actually you can take that even higher. You can maybe do 13 or etc. Types of operators. And so that's definitely possible. I would say that we, I think, should definitely, SSV.network should really focus just on the infrastructure level. I don't want to get into developing any of the applications on top of it. But one of the things I'm doing now is to reach out to various companies who do want to build, for example, DApp nodes and Rocket Pool and so on, and try to get to a POC with them, to a proof of concept with them. And see how that works. So that's on one side, and the other side is I kind of as we launch our DAO, I would imagine that our DAO would want to grant grants for people to develop on top of it. And if you have an idea and you want to build it, you can do that. So that's kind of where the sweet spot I think we should be. Focus on the infrastructure, make the infrastructure level as performant as possible. And hopefully, you build it and they will come. So that's kind of, I guess, the philosophy.
And then from an individual perspective, right? So say I'm that small staker with 32 or 64 ETH. I want to run 1 or 2 validators. I can do this solo. And if you want to do that, more power to you, and the tools are there, and the S-Staker Discord and Reddit will support you, and so on. That's awesome, right? For decentralization. It's also a lot of work. Now you're learning Linux, you're becoming a network expert, you're becoming a security expert. It's fun, but it's a big lift, right? Block staking wanted to solve that for people by saying, okay, you don't need to know much. We'll just put your key into your key vault in Amazon, and then we'll run the infrastructure. I think SSV is one step beyond that. You don't even need that Amazon thing anymore that runs in your account.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's exactly the path we took. I mean, the reason why we got involved into SSVs by accident. I mean, we researched what can be done in a trustless setup for staking, and I that was almost 18 months ago, even more so. And we kind of saw a YouTube video of the EF guys talking about SSV, and so I thought, that's a good idea. let's help them out. But it wasn't really mature enough in terms of, I knew that something, like how I wanted to implement it and what role it can play. So it took another year to get there, but I totally agree. I mean, I personally, and again, that's up to our community, but if I need to choose where to run my validators, as of now, that gonna be blocks, and obviously I run my validators on blocks. But as soon as SSV is ready, I think I should move to SSV, because I don't wanna have my keys online. I don't want to run a piece of software. I don't want to get involved in updates and so on. And that's me speaking with, I'm fairly very technical. I'm very into Ethereum. But if I know something and I'm an expert in Ethereum and blockchain, it doesn't really mean that I want to be my own IT administrator and run my own servers. That doesn't, usually that means exactly the opposite. If that's your job, that's exactly what you don't want to do on your free time. And so I think that SSV solves that as well. I would imagine that a lot of DIY stakers would want to run SSV, especially all of the people screaming at us to release the seedless key vault already. I would imagine them after they move to seedless wanna take a go at SSV as well.
Actually, that's a great segue as well to the next point. Obviously, we talked a lot about how SSV can solve the problem, and I'd like to drill down a little bit into what use cases, how can SSV be implemented with existing solutions, specifically with yours and maybe other solutions in the industry that could definitely benefit both the network and the participants.
So you've talked about a rocket pool. I've talked with the team as well, and of course they're super busy with their launch. But maybe this is a good time to shout out to them as well to move along with an SSV proof of concept, rocket pool SSV proof of concept, and then hopefully mainnet. But I think rocket pool is a great example of that. It's two layers of decentralization which end up being totally owned by the community. I think that's a really, really interesting direction to go. I know DAppNode is working on something similar, and we're trying to help them out as well. Another use case for pools is something like Lido, which say, you know what, we have the professional operators and we add them all the time, but we want to decentralize not just vertically but also horizontally. That is not just divide into batches the 32 ETH validators into different operators, but also interconnect the operators. So if one of them gets hacked or slashed and so on, they're protected. So I think that's a good second use case.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. So how will this affect us at CryptoManufaktur? Well, we've been completely business to business focused so far. We're a very, very young firm. So we're running Chainlink nodes. This will allow us to take that same experience of running secure, resilient nodes and expand that to Ethereum staking. And I love that, sure, I'm comfortable and confident in my own solution. I will say, yep, we are protecting ourselves well from hacking. I would be beyond arrogant to say there is a 0% chance that we ever get hacked. Right? That is just not something. I was a security professional at one point in InfoSec, so that's just not something I would ever be comfortable saying. We're controlling the risk as best we can, as everybody is. So the opportunity to say, we're going to be a staking provider. We're going to set this up so it's resilient and highly available. And that means we're protected from the risk of over-rotating on availability and then getting people slashed by mistake. And we're protected from somebody hacking us after all, and then getting a fraction of the key, which in this case means nothing because it's a fraction of a key.
I think it also opens up a new business opportunities. I think that if you look at the landscape of staking services today, they actually play two roles. One is they are the retail front for staking, and the other one is they're also infrastructure developers, all of them.
Right.
And I think that might work for a while, but I think that you need specializations. And I think what will happen with SSV is that you'll basically separate that into two different groups. Although the same company can play two roles, but you'll at least have the ability to be, an infrastructure provider or a retail front for staking, or both. Which now you need to do both of them together. And so that's I think another thing that will happen with SSV. A new market of type of staking services will basically open up, and it will actually be very similar to Chainlink in that sense. I mean, Chainlink, the operators worked to the best of their abilities to be a good operator, and others choose the network, and by that give revenue to the operators. Where today, in ETH staking, you need to be very good at staking, or at least getting Ethereum people to trust you with their Ethereum, and also be very good with infrastructure.
Yeah,
and I think
like
SSV will split it up. Yeah.
Like you said before, we don't even understand all the doors this will open yet. Just like DeFi was a concept that, started, I don't want to say fairly simple, but nobody knew all the use cases that would spill out from that. And I think that's the beginning stages of this as well. There's going to be services that come from this that open up new doors for people that in traditional staking with ETH just aren't there, and at some point it is going to be, something will come out, will make this just a much better solution on the other side of it, rather than above just the decentralization, the security aspect of it. And we're excited for that and what those services that come out of this are.
I actually, there's another cool new thing. Actually, I don't think I even told my team yet. So everyone knows about XDAI, right? The kind of the parallel chain to Ethereum. It's EVM and so on and so forth. One of the things they want to do is move to POS. One of the things that the Ethereum Foundation wants to do is try to merge XDAI, proof of work, to proof of stake. Before they do that on mainnet Ethereum, for obvious reasons, right? You try it out before. Yeah. One of the things we try to do now is actually go mainnet on SSV before we go mainnet on Ethereum SSV mainnet. Go on XDAI mainnet, because it's basically the same thing. Nice. And so that's, for example, a cool use case that that I didn't think about before. But and hopefully, if it happens, that would be awesome. But it's serving a completely different community of people, which is very connected to Ethereum, without needing to think about it even, because the infrastructure is there. And so that one of the things I really hope that will happen. It's still very far from execution, but that could be really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's something new for me as well. So that sounds very cool. One of the most interesting questions that came up from the community during our last call was regarding a hypothetical situation where, assuming all the important staking providers join the SSV network, the question that kept on coming up is, how can they keep their uniqueness? So I'm a participant in the network. I joined the network because of the benefits that it brings me. Now, I give away some of the advantages that I had before by joining the network. So how can I still keep my uniqueness and my value proposition?
You ask as operators or as staking?
From the point of view of the operators, exactly. Yeah.
I think you'll like everything, you'll have to specialize and you'll have to find your own niche. There's a lot of infrastructure services in the Ethereum space or the blockchain space now, and each one of them has a slightly different take on what they're doing. And I think you'll see the exact same happening there. And again, if I need to kind of mirror the situation at Chainlink, they have like 150 operators. That's crazy. That's a huge number. And all of them are businesses, and all of them are different entities, completely autonomous, and they work together. And the bigger the Chainlink gets, the bigger they get. I think the same thing will happen here. I think that one of the things that I really think will happen is really that divergence of specialized operators and specialized staking services. Some companies can do both, but I do think you'll have that specialization, because I think it's long overdue. I think that you really need to be focused on infrastructure if you're doing infrastructure.
Yeah, and part of that story is how do you differentiate yourself in the future? I mean, reputation is going to go a long way in this space. It always will on anything infrastructure wise. I think being part of the community is huge in such a young field, and we've seen it with how much Yorick has been around. That community aspect can really differentiate you in this space as well. And then what you choose to put your time and energy into, like going back to my first thing I was talking about, there'll be a lot of stuff that might not survive this on the lower end of the spectrum of everything crypto. And I think over time, people that invest their time and energy into the right things will come out differentiated because they've been able to invest a lot more, digging deeper into those rather than wider. And that does get to that specialization as well.
Yeah, especially I think as we approach the merge, we'll see, in my opinion, we'll see at least 2 or 3x the number of ETH staked the closer we get to the merge, and of course afterwards. And that's gonna be the biggest market in the world. I mean, by far. You'll have, I don't know, 15 million, 20 million ETH, unless the Ethereum Foundation will limit it in some way. I know there's talks about it, but even the talks talk about 15 to 16 million ETH. That's huge. That's a huge amount.
Yeah, I'll circle around to that when we get to that part about what opinion after the merge. I'll come back to that then.
Giving some spoilers. Yeah, exactly. Let me move along to the next question. Apologies. Just quickly, just to hear, since you're one of the earliest adopters of this technology, just to hear from your own words, Yorick, how it's been for you so far.
Yorick, that's excluding version 14, by the way. That's not a good version.
No, it's been really great. So the Blocks team who are developing the software have been really good at working with us, getting this up and running. It's been a lot of fun. A good cooperation with the other node operators. There's a community there. Now I want to point out that for individuals who want to test this, I got a YouTube up that shows you how to put your validator key in. And again, right now you do need that 32 play ETH to participate, right? And we use what we've learned with Chainlink to create a resilient SSV node. That idea is now up on a GitHub. It's public. It can be looked at. It's currently using Docker Swarm, but can be adjusted to Kubernetes. So that takes all the components and then runs the components that don't have keys, such as the consensus clients, so this case Lighthouse and Teku, and the execution clients, so Geth, in a load balanced redundant fashion, and then runs the part that has a fraction of a key, the SSV node, as a single instance, but across multiple worker nodes, as they're known, in the containerization environment, so that if one data center disappears off the face of the earth, the orchestrator will know that and spin up a fresh copy in another data center. And they use shared storage so that there's only ever one copy of that fraction of a key.
One of the things we've talked about, and that's definitely one of the kind of the objectives for the testnet, is to also find ways to scale. So what if you're a very good operator and you have 1,000, 2,000, 10,000 shares? We'll need to think about ways to go about in doing so. And I definitely would love to collaborate on that. That's something we need to tackle. But yeah, I mean, that's, you both need a stable validator, a node, but you also need a scalable setup, and so that's going to be a challenge going forward.
Yeah, so the challenge there is on the back end, right? We can handle that with the load balancer, but the consensus client, I think Lighthouse, Teku, they top out at 1,000 to maybe 2,000 ish, and then you want to have another one, right? So that we can handle with load balancers. But we also have the SSV node itself, and I think it's yet to be discovered as to where that tops out. So having some additional, fraction of a key distribution mechanisms in the front end, maybe, or things of that nature would be really helpful. And I'm looking forward, honestly, in testnet to trying to break it with scale. That'll be fun.
once we fix all the stability issues, yeah,
That's
you'll
right. Once we have it stable, 100% stable, then let's try and break it. You know,
definitely
make it scream.
yeah. Yeah, I think that like from our point of view, the experience is valuable. I mean, you can't really test anything well enough until you have it in the hands of other people. I mean,
Right.
you know, we saw that multiple times. Literally, the kind of the version we made fun of is version 0014 was everything worked great on our end, but once you start kind of mixing it up, then all of a sudden you find the issues. And so it's the same here. We need to get to a point where everything is very, very well tested out, and that point is goes through having a lot of people use it, both operators, validators as well, and so on. And so that's the most valuable thing. So kind of the first few weeks of the testnet, we try to figure out setup and documentation issues. And so we moved there, and now we are moving towards stability and robustness. And the next phases will be more features and, of course, scale and so on and so forth. So those are kind of the things from our end. We can't really make this testnet without other people.
All right, guys, just so I don't want to rush anyone, just we're running a bit short on time. So the last section, and that's something I personally usually fast forward to that part where I hear the expert's opinion about questions that normal human beings that don't understand concepts like finality sharding and stuff like that can wrap their heads around. So this is sort of like an open-end opinion round. So the $1 million question, or at least the almost $1 million question now is, where do you guys see the ecosystem, the Ethereum staking ecosystem after the merge?
Yeah. So I think we're gonna. Sorry, Jake, go ahead.
You go for it.
Okay. So I see that we will still have multiple centralized exchanges being very important, and that we will see decentralized pools as being important, so that people who have maybe just half an ETH or 1 ETH can stake, right? That always introduces counterparty risk, which means you need to some degree, trust that entity you're putting your ETH into. They have to give you a token for it. There's just no way around that, right? And so I see, we had the question of how do you differentiate yourself? I think these staking pools, they'll be able, whether centralized or decentralized, they'll be able to differentiate themselves by how slick their interface is, how well they're integrated, how easy it is to get on. They might differentiate themselves on how they pay out rewards. So we're looking at additional rewards after merge, the priority fees, which also have been called the minor tips. That's one. And then something called maximal extractable value. And I'm not going to get into exactly what that is, but that's a rabbit hole you can dive into on YouTube. And what that is. And both of those things are highly luck dependent. So I think you will see quite a few pools that take these rewards that can vary widely from block to block, and they will smooth them out and pay them out smooth, right? So that's one way to differentiate, to say, do you get luck of the draw, or do you get an average of all the performance, right? That's one way. And then, as I said, counterparty risk. Can we be hacked or no? Are we using SSV on the back end so we're safe against slashing and hacking? That kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I'll take this kind of a different way away from the technical. Where you see the Ethereum staking ecosystem after the merge. I mean, coming into this space when I did, there was not a lot you could do in crypto. I mean, you held your Bitcoin. I'd buy something off of a site just because they allowed it to happen. And the way that the space has transformed and the tokenomics at play, as more people get onboarded that are not technical, and as they start that journey, through this, at some point they're going to realize that a big part of this space is putting your stuff to use, right? It's not going to be that you just want to hold Ethereum. You want to hold Ethereum and make something off your Ethereum. And I think that concept will be so commonplace someday that you just don't hold it. A lot of these new entrants instantly think, I buy it and I've got to get it staked somewhere. I've got to get it earning something. I've got to get it doing something for me. Because after that big tech wave in going into mass adoption, people are going to generally gravitate more towards that aspect than the technical aspect of it. And so I think the staking will be just so core to this entire industry for years and years and years.
I would again mention MEV. I think that's going to be a leading factor in anything we're doing. There's a lot of challenges around POS and MEV, and I would add that shortly after the merge, one of the biggest things that's going to happen is the work on withdrawals, which are sounds easy, but it's actually much harder than it is. In some aspects, and withdrawals I think will be the ultimate milestone for POS, because I think that will reshuffle everything. I think that will reshuffle the big staking services, the small staking services. It will open up everything. It basically will mean that you can move your stake with a click of a button between staking services. And if we can learn anything from DeFi, is that's a major thing in all of the DeFi world. We saw tremendous losses and tremendous gains in TVL for DeFi ecosystems at the click of a button. It was even the best of them. I think the only ones I didn't see huge effects are like the original DeFi services like Uniswap and Compound and so on. All of the others are very volatile in terms of the amount of assets they have, and I think we'll see that playing out exactly the same. Withdrawals will basically mean that people can move their funds and, of course, sell them. But what will happen is that they can move their funds between staking services, and I think that will reshuffle the entire industry once again.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
That will be interesting to see.
Yeah, if you have the walled garden is essentially down, right? I mean, you can just walk away and go to another platform, and we did see this with the vampire attacks, and I remember kind of front row watching this stuff, and everybody's like, okay, what gives this value over this? And it comes to a lot more than just what the protocol does, right? It's the community it's built up, it's their commitment to the community, it's what they've done, the history they've had. And we've seen many cases where it's not just about instant gains, that people do truly get behind some of these platforms because they want to be in them and they want to support them. So I think that's an important thing going through all of this. When you're right, it's going to be much easier to go between them. What is that loyal following you built up? What are then the extra things you're bringing to the community? And are you doing it first, right? The copy is always going to be a copy. The original is always going to be the first to develop something first for the platform. And I think those things will continue on and push people to constantly be innovative, right? That's the beauty of this space. It moves so fast because everybody's just innovative right off the bat. And I think that'll continue and be one of the driving factors for keeping people on these platforms.
Definitely.
So the last question for today, before the optional answers, is exactly, in your opinion, if we talked about the transition to POS, we talked about the changes in the tokenomics, about a lot of things, a lot of factors, a lot of security layers, measures, and whatnot. In this hypothetical post-merge world, what do you guys think, or could SSV, what role could it play in the ecosystem?
I think it will play the role that we touched on multiple times already now, which is it reduces counterparty risk. If I'm staking with, say, I don't really care, any staking service, there is a risk that they get hacked. There's a risk that they make a mistake, a configuration mistake, and get my ETH slashed, right? And even if they make me whole on that, that risk is still there. SSV greatly reduces this risk to, so I would say as close to zero as you can come.
I think that I would hope that SSV will play a fundamental role in the success of Ethereum staking at large. I think that it has the potential to do so. I think it's something that we'll definitely see rolling out. It's not a pipe dream. It's not something which it's not a pie in the sky technology. It's very grounded technology, but put together in an interesting way. And so I really hope it will play a major role and a central role in Ethereum staking, and then moving on as kind of an infrastructure bed for innovation.
Yeah. True.
All right. So last but not least, you guys are very early adopters of this technology. Just to
Yes, we
wrap
are.
things up, yeah, very early. And if you, by the way, if you guys are browsing around, Discord communities regarding staking Ethereum or anything related, you'll definitely see Yorick there. So you can definitely check it out. But for those of you who aren't, roaming the Discord space or Telegram space, Yorick, in your own words, it would be great to hear why people or why stakers should choose you guys as operators for this. You touched a bit on it, but it would be great for a final wrapping, final sentence.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So I think I'll go right into where you just were with, we're active on Discord and Reddit. When is the last time you managed to get in touch with Binance and ask them a question about your staking setup? That just doesn't happen. So because this is all so young and still small, we have the luxury of doing that and being incredibly active with the community. There's YouTube videos on our YouTube channel that walk you through all kinds of things that I find interesting, from Ethereum staking to home NAS and ZFS and things, so always giving back. The other thing is I am really passionate about both availability and security. And you see that in how we're running our SSV node, right? So this gets we talked about all the availability features we've added to it that we're now feeding back to the community. I'm also running the node as a non-root user. This gets very technical, but basically I'm making sure that it's as secure as it can be, even if that's not in the base software yet, and then that can go back upstream, into the base software.
Yeah.
So that combination of go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to touch on a little bit what we talked about before. I mean, infrastructure is a serious matter in any industry, and taking it serious. We have a ton of 20 plus years both a piece in the tech space and supporting big infrastructure for big customers. And so we bring that kind of enterprise grade experience to a new blossoming field. And so just a lot of experience that has led us to this point that makes it a very serious operation for us, even though this is such a new field, a new company. We've got lots of years behind us doing this stuff.
Great. Alon, are any final words, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I mean, from my point of view, just a huge thanks for being an early adopter. It's not a given. It means that you need to be up on your toes and upgrade versions and deal with issues and also spend a lot of time doing so. And so a big thank you for me, from Blocks, and of course the community. We couldn't find better partners to do so with. I mean, the fact that you guys are so involved, that's exactly what makes the difference. So awesome. A huge thanks, and thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you all very much for the opportunity. This is awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your time, guys. It's been a pleasure. Let's wrap it up, and we'll see you on Discord in a few minutes.
Indeed.
He's everywhere. All right. Bye, guys.
Thank you, guys. Bye.
Later.
Bye, guys.
Bye.